Hello and good afternoon to all of you in Europe, and good evening or good morning to all of you in other continents. And welcome to this celebration of the first 25 years of EuroVelo, the European cycling route network. This is truly a celebration and a real European celebration, from the North Cape to Malta and from Ireland to Turkey. I'm Henk Zwartouw. I'm the president of the European Cyclist Federation, ECF. And ECF manages the brand of EuroVelo and the overall project. But what I would like to stress here in these introductory words is that EuroVelo really is a collective effort, a collective endeavor, and that's what you're going to see in the coming 2 hours. EuroVelo is also one of the core projects of ECF, but we can only do this through the enormous, extensive network of partners working to bring EuroVelo where it is now and to continue to grow EuroVelo in the next 25 years. The national EuroVelo coordinators, the national EuroVelo coordinating centers, our contact points, the members of the EuroVelo Council, national and regional supporters, volunteers, and not least also the EU institutions. It's only through the cooperation, through the collective effort of all of us, that we can make and build this network for Europe's cyclists and for tourists from elsewhere who want to enjoy our continent. In 2012, together with the European Parliament, one of the EU institutions, we did a study on the EuroVelo network and on cycling tourism in general, which showed that at that time, every year, 2.3 billion cycling trips, touristic cycling, leisure cycling trips, were taken in Europe. That the total economic value of cycling tourism in Europe was 44 billion euros, and that it created more than 500,000 jobs. And the estimate for the entire network, when it would be fully developed, was a worth of 7 billion euros. So that was in 2012. And since then, we have had the climate emergency, we have the COVID crisis, we are seeing rapidly changing patterns in tourism that Alessandro Priante will tell us about. So we really need a new study, and we need updated figures on the contribution of cycling tourism to our economy, but also to resolving the climate crisis. So if anybody has any good ideas how we can get that research done, please get in touch. Now we will talk about, for the coming 2 hours, not only about the history, the 25-year history of EuroVelo, but also on how we can accelerate the development of the network in the next years to come. That is the big question for today. And with that, wishing you a wonderful webinar and a good celebration, I hand over to Camille Thomé, my colleague, my esteemed colleague, I must say, on the ECF board and on the EuroVelo Council, who will be your host for today. The floor is yours, Camille.
Thank you so much, Hank. I was wondering, a little question before you go away. Where are you connecting from? Is that Sweden? Is that Barcelona? Is that somewhere on the EuroVelo?
I'm connecting from Malaga, which is on, and I can see the EuroVelo 8 from the window here. So from the EuroVelo network, of course, on this day, one should be on the EuroVelo network.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hank. So from Malaga, myself, I'm connected from Lyon, in France, obviously, along the EuroVelo 17, the Rhone cycle route. So I will start this address and this moderation by wishing everybody a happy birthday, EuroVelo, and telling you that there are 520 people registered to connect to that webinar. So we are very numerous. It's almost an online velocity, isn't it? I also want to say how great a privilege it is to be hosting this session, because EuroVelo is very dear to me. As Hank said, my name is Camille Thomé. I've been a EuroVelo Council member since 2011, so it's high time that I also leave. Room for next EuroVelo Council members very soon, being next year. But I'm also talking from France, as Vélo et Territoire, who is my employer, is the National Coordination Center for France, one of the largest EuroVelo countries, with more than 8,800 kilometers of EuroVelo planned, and most of it is also already implemented. In France, EuroVelo really are the champion routes, with what we've recorded over the past 3 years since COVID, with plus 30% of cyclists using EuroVelos in France, just over the course of the last 3 years, which is enormous, needless to say. So 10 out of the 17 EuroVelos go through France, which is about 8,800 kilometers. So a lot of EuroVelo go through France, which is quite central to the network. And now I have to deliver a few technical requirements, plus the first being, know that the meeting is recorded, so don't say anything you would regret. There's a question and answer module available for questions, chat for comments, so it's 2 separate things. Please use them wisely and appropriately. And without further ado, I will pass on the microphone to the first keynote, Professor Alessandra Priante, Director Europe of the United Nations World Tourism Organization. Dear Alessandra, I don't know if you're here. Welcome. Hello, Alessandra. First of all, could you say from where you are talking? Are you next to a EuroVelo at all?
Madrid.
Excellent. So we see we have 2 people connected from Spain right now. So Alessandra, you will tell us what trends and opportunity for psychotourism in the post-pandemic the United Nations World Tourism Organization have in mind. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Camille. Thank you, and congratulations for the 25 years of EuroVelo. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. And as agreed, I want to splash you a little bit with some data regarding not only the global trends, but also in general, something that could be beneficial for the discussion. Don't need to remind you who we are, yet I always do that because, we should never take things for granted. We support leaders and in general, the tourism stakeholders to make sure that there's enough knowledge, data, and understanding of the policymaking process within the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. So let's talk data here. We have the latest data for the barometer, of course, compared to 2019. I don't know if you can see the evolution. It's going pretty well worldwide for the international tourist arrivals. If we incorporate the data of September, we've all seen an enlarging of the season is going to go even better. And this is a good sign of recovery. Yet, as I always say, the question of are these good numbers should always be there. So 2019 is put there as an objective to be reached once again. But I would like to remind every one of us that when we were in the end of 2019, we were all at turmoil because many destinations were saying there was too many of us. And because cycling tourism is so specific, but also so important for the deseasoning and decongestions of main points of attraction, it becomes even more and more relevant to understand from member states, from stakeholders, if these numbers have been thought of. Because for now, what we see, the primary element is to recover the money lost in 2 years. If we look at the general performance, we see that obviously Europe and the Middle East have been performing the best. And the trend is even stronger for Europe if we incorporate the data of September. Here is even more clear because it's really compared to the percentage that has been recovered. So we are getting close to the full recovery. If we look at the world, you can see that the green curve is going towards the yellow, which is the 2019 data. And obviously for Europe is even closer. The shape of the curve is the typical shape of a tourism international arrivals curve because you have the peak during the summer. Once again, cycling tourism is what allows this peak to be a little bit softened, therefore spreading revenues and people as much as possible, yet achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. This is why for us is a very, very dear segment that we're carefully looking at. Look how nice, look what the surprise is. Obviously the Caribbeans, they needed to reopen. These data that you've seen show that compared to 2019, the data have recovered 350% in terms of international tourism arrivals. But this was because 62 destinations were fully open, 39 of which were Europeans. Among this, look at the great performance of the Balkans. The Balkans are showing a great performance also in terms of earnings. An absolute surprise. Obviously, it's all in relative terms, but this really shows that those destinations that were about to blossom at the end of 2019, so they had a very nice curve, price, quality, destinations to be developed, they immediately put their focus on sustainability. They were the ones that are getting best results. And trust us, that you should take a look at the Balkans to see where they're going. What are the main factors weighing on the recovery of international tourism? I would really like to have this slide as a point of reference for your discussion, because this is a little bit more global. Definitely the economic environment. Everyone is fearing for the costs to be very high up, and therefore being a very, very big problem for everyone. Therefore, higher transport and accommodation costs. Who among us hasn't seen the rising prices of flight tickets and mostly of hotels? There are some destinations in which hotel prices have been like tripled, which is really bad. Still travel restrictions. Look at Asia. The entire Asia is locked up, and still there's no sign of recovery there from the tourists to be moving onto the Western hemispheres. And obviously in our specific case is the war in Ukraine, and therefore all the rest. Low consumer confidence, airport congestions, staff shortages, and the fact that the sanitary situation is still up there and running. So if I go on to the next slide, apologies, I will try to go back. Forecasts. The green is what we're forecasting. The best situation. We're pretty confident we're getting there. We have at the moment a double challenge. Why is this relevant also for cycling tourism? Because, of course, cycling tourism implies that there is stopovers. So we are seeing a widespread workforce shortage. This is a huge issue. This has to be a movement which is global, not just for the specific segment of tourism, but this has to be for absolutely everything. And we need to reinvent the way policymakers and tourism stakeholders do tourism, with an adaptation to a new demand, which wants sustainability more and more, which wants the two wheels more and more. We have to improve the supply, and we have to, of course, address the seasonality. We are covering and supporting all of this. Coordination and collaboration, giving policy guidance, providing the best research and data, because good decisions require good data, and obviously going on site for technical assistance. But we need to make sure that the three key elements for tourism excellence are in place. Measuring requires planning, because of course, when you are developing a destination, you need to plan ahead of time and you need to manage it. Of course, all of this for us means that you need to take very good care on these four key pillars at a global level: sustainability, jobs and skills, investments in innovation, and tourism for rural development. I always say that cycling tourism falls very much within the tourism for rural development. Why? Because it entangles a new way of discovering a destination, allowing for a different pace and for different areas to be reached only by bicycle. So why not? This allow me to just remind you that we are committed, together with other sister agencies and with the G20, for the One Planet vision for responsible recovery of the tourism sector, because we want everyone to commit to a situation where we're going to cut the global tourism emissions. And this is very relevant when it comes to cycling tourism, because cycling tourism has an incredibly good effect when it comes to this type of commitment for a decade of climate action in tourism, making sure we achieve our objectives, also the sustainable development goals. When you're measuring the sustainability of cycling tourism, and here we go with the ad hoc analysis, of course, we see that cycling is on the rise. And the number of kilometers traveled by bike in Switzerland, for example, doubled during the country's partial lockdown. And this is a situation for everyone. We can make a real impact, as I was saying, when we ride a bike, just 5 kilometers per day, we're creating the life or protecting the life of 4 trees. So imagine the impact that we can have. And it's definitely more accessible and more affordable. So all the benefits that we are seeing are environmental, economic, health, and social benefits for investing in cycling tourism. We need to stand together, and we are standing together with ECF for this, to make sure that all the stakeholders understand how important it is to invest in cycling tourism, which means that we need to start from the existing mobility plans and to make sure that we're expanding them to endorse and to embed cycling tourism, and not just cycling tracks, cycling tourism, so the activity of cycling. And obviously, cycling tourism allows us to implement new technology and innovation, especially when it comes to the rural areas. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you very much, and I hope I gave you enough food for thought for the upcoming discussion.
That's plenty of food. Thank you so much, Alessandra. It's a very good thing that things are recorded so that we can come back to it and, get a good look at the data, because they're very interesting. We do want to keep in mind the deseasoning aspects you've been underlining, the importance of decarbonizing tourism as well, which is a commitment that everybody wants to take, but it's difficult to tackle. The decongestion, and the fact that the most attractive destinations, apart from all the problems we're facing right now, are the ones that are betting on sustainability, which is a very key aspect to the further development of tourism in general, and even so more for cycle tourism. The question of the workforce shortage, of course, that's something that every destination in the world is facing. France knows something about that too. And you also talked about measurement and being able to evaluate what we implement, what we do, and how to push it forward. And that's also something that Hank mentioned in his introduction, the importance that we would have to also monitor a bit more deeply on EuroVelo network. We do have data and economic data dating from 2012. Well, this is 2022, so maybe we need to dig and get finances to dig a bit more into this and get the proper updated research and data, especially regarding everything you've been pointing at. You have already explained how much UNWTO does support the acceleration of the development of EuroVelo, and thank you so much for this. So I will move forward to our next keynote, because it will come as an echo to your presentation. And thank you so much, Alessandra, for being with us for this 25th birthday.
Thank you very much, Camille. Just before leaving you, just allow me, because I'm very people oriented. So I'm really happy that there was a lot of questions while I was speaking. If you allow me, I would just like to take a few seconds to say that yes, this presentation, we will make it available at the end, even though of course it has been recorded, but we'll gladly share with you. There were also some questions regarding the metrics, and one of my team members is connected, and he's going to be very happy to reply. But also, I would like to point out there's a very, very interesting question from Eric Conroy that says, how can cycling tourism operate without encouraging flying to get there? Should we encourage short distance holidays with travel by train and bike? And my response is absolutely. This is the best type of solution, and this is what actually allowed tourism to stay alive throughout all the pandemic. So thank you, Eric, for that. Thank you, Camille, for giving me the space. My email is, I'm going to digitize it once again here. So anybody that wants to reach out to us to have more information, I am at your full disposal. Thank you very much once again.
So it's going to rain emails on Alessandra's mailbox. Thank you so much, Alessandra. Again, I'm going to move on now directly to Valentina Berti, and thank you, Valentina, for being here today with us. Valentina, you are the Director of Ecosystem 2, Tourism and Proximity at DG Grow, so that's very important. First of all, can I ask you the very same question I've been asking to everyone? Where are you connected from, Valentina? Do you have a EuroVelo outside your window at all?
You know that I am connected from a place which used to be boring, but it's increasingly becoming less boring, I think, which is Brussels. So,
well, thank you so much. You are the heart of things, the heart of EuroVelo, the beating heart as well.
more
So
like
you're going to tell us...
Like cycling,
yeah.
the way.
Exactly. So you got EuroVelo 5 outside your window, apparently. So can you tell us, Valentina, about how cycling helps towards more sustainable tourism in Europe? Of course it does, but how does it help?
Yeah, it helps a lot. First of all, just to give you, the picture, or trying to give you the picture of what we are trying to achieve here from the European Commission. We are working for tourism, which has been identified by ourselves as being one of the main 14 ecosystems in Europe. We are working relentlessly for ensuring that tourism works, that it recovers, notably now from the pandemic. But also at the same time, we are taking a longer term perspective, and we are working on finding ways of making tourism in Europe more sustainable, more digitally enabled, and more resilient. So, well, why all this attention for tourism? It's no coincidence. It's an ecosystem which is extremely relevant from a socioeconomic perspective. You have to know that tourism in Europe represents overall around 10% of GDP in Europe, but for some member states and regions, it's close to 30–40%. And it's about millions and millions of jobs. So the contribution that cycling can give to the health and wealth of this ecosystem is, I think, potentially very, very important. And why? Because on the one hand, as I was saying, we are looking at the short-term recovery, and these were also the figures and the graphs which were mentioned by the previous speaker. And this is, of course, very important because of the figures that I mentioned. But at the same time, we are mindful of the future. So we need to start working now for the future. And the future we see for tourism is a tourism that is more sustainable, digitally enabled, and resilient, as I was saying. And I think that cycling, quite intuitively, has to be part of this picture. Why? For various reasons. The most evident one is the greening part. Of course, it's quite evident. Cycling is a key element in the green transition. And besides the fact that cyclotourism is, I would say, a great way to discover a region and its beauties, it's also something that contributes to tackle a phenomenon which is to be tackled, which is the one of over-tourism. And cycling can be part of that of the solution. And also, and I come to the resilience strand. It's also, if you think of it, by promoting cycling, it means promoting alternative routes, unknown routes, which in turn gives a possibility to local businesses, to local SMEs to flourish. So there is an indirect effect of cycling on local economies. So, of course, when we think of tourism, it's a very heterogeneous and complex ecosystem. We think when we discuss tourism, we have at least 4 strands in mind. One of those 4 strands is mobility. And certainly, again, cycling has its part to play in that context. Now, I take also the point that it would be interesting to have more data, accurate data. For your information, we are working a lot on data. We have developed now a dashboard. We are also working on a possible future tourism data space. So we are, I'm just mentioning this because we want to work on data. So I think any data that we can get from you, from you know, this contribution that cycling can make to the tourism ecosystem in particular would be welcome, but also any help that we can give to that discussion in principle is something we should explore. So with that all being said, EuroVelo, now to come to you, you know, I think you are already part of the picture at political level, including, you know, the Sustainable Smart Mobility Strategy, which was presented by the Commission in 2020. You have been mentioned there, but I know that from various, you know, from various political instances, there are calls for, you know, for example, establishing a youth cycling strategy or, you know, things of the sort. We are not there yet. Perhaps we will get there. It will also depend on you, but also on our good cooperation, of course. But that being said, I think there are things that we can do in the meantime. But perhaps I stop here and I introduce a little bit of suspense and I give it back to Camille if you have any questions for me.
Well, maybe if you allow, Valentina, I might have a little tiny question for you, which you might not provide complete answer, but maybe you will try. What do you think is the European Commission and the participants of today's meeting? What can the European Commission do to support cycling tourism further development at European Commission level, in I want to say DG Grow level maybe? What are you trying to push forward? You talked about more sustainable, more digitally enabled, more resilient. I mean, cyclotourism and EuroVelo ticks all the boxes, obviously. So it's very suitable to your objectives. So how can you further support it in a way, like very concretely speaking?
Yeah, concretely speaking, I think, first of all, as you know, there is a European budget, which is big and small. It's 1% of GDP in Europe. But of course, what is interesting is the leverage effect. And there, cyclotourism, you know, that is eligible for support on a number of EU funding programs. We have precisely, you know, with the funding dimension in mind, produced an online guide, which is available for everybody. You just, you know, Google and you type online guide for European online guide for tourism, and there you find all the possible different funding opportunities. There are specific opportunities, by the way, under the single market program that it's not big money, it's a small money, but still it can be helpful. And of course, this is in addition to the national recovery and resilience plans. Now, what is interesting to know, perhaps you know, but I reiterate, is that for all this money, which is close to 1 trillion, so it's something, more than 50% of the funds have to be devoted to sustainability, digitalization, and resilience. So the themes are correspond. Of course, this is high level, but then you translate it into projects, and your activities fit completely in the picture. So there are possibilities there. You need to explore and to find out, and if we can help, providing some advice, of course, we are there for that. In addition, as you know, we are co-creating with the many stakeholders, including yourselves, a so-called transition pathway for tourism, meaning that we want to move again from strategy to action, from words to action, to concrete projects. And we are, in a way, co-creating, it's the word, common projects with the many stakeholders, including yourselves. And I think this is, at the minimum, is good publicity for yourselves, because we are, we have an holistic, in a way, an holistic approach and view, and we are, we are known. So this is publicity for you, but then also there are networking possibilities, but then also with our advice, you could get more funding. So there is all of that. Perhaps I also mentioned, that for sure, but I was in Barcelona. No, you don't know I was in Barcelona, but I tell you, I was in Barcelona last week with the mayors of many cities around Europe, and cycling is part of the solution for most of these cities. Cities are developing local Green Deals, and meaning the Green Deal translated into the city dimension, and cycling is each time mentioned as one of the solutions to go for more sustainable mobility. So there may be also interesting opportunities there, liaising. To come to the practical advice, liaise with cities, liaise with us, liaise with the national and the regional authorities. By the way, we are also working on an EU agenda for tourism together with the 27 member states. So the agenda is a shared agenda, and the themes are always those that I mentioned. So there is coherence of objectives. Now, of course, the challenge is to find the right track to operate on. But I think in terms of themes, you're certainly well placed to promote cycling even further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valentina. So it's very interesting. I'm sure people have been taking lots of notes regarding your online guide, regarding all the key financing that are available, and the fact that everything is put into coherence, and that also a part of the discussion will be held with cities, and cycling is part of the plans for many cities right now, and it's a given golden opportunity to remind everybody that there will be a Velocity conference held in the month of May in the city of Leipzig, addressing all those types of subjects. A little bit tourism, but not only, about the mobility plans in different cities, and how cycling is, of course, a key component of that, etc. Thank you so much, Valentina. Now, rushing a bit for the rest of the program, we'll be addressing the origins up to the 2030 EuroVelo strategy, how to accelerate the further development of the European cycle route network. And for that, I give the floor to Alex Crevard, our adventure cycling journalist, who will be presenting himself and his panelists, who are eminent. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. And I'll just answer the question before you ask it. I'm looking out at EuroVelo 43, the future EuroVelo route in the new world. I'm here in Washington, D.C., but I typically live in the Balkans. And I was really glad to hear Alessandro mention the Balkans and also speak them up a little bit. We're working on a new route that will connect all of the 8 Western Balkan countries. So thank you for that. Welcome all. Thank you for being here for this, I consider to be very important panel. I am Alex Crevard. I'm a 25-year journalist who's covered several articles about the EuroVelo over the years. And I would say it has made a huge impression on me. And for that reason, I have largely shifted the focus of my journalism to cycling for lots of reasons, but everybody on this Auspicious occasion, I'm sure can understand why. Like everyone else, I feel very lucky to be here for this particular session, where we are looking from the origins of the EuroVelo to the 2030 strategy. We have a really wonderful opportunity here to hear about those EuroVelo bookends with two guests who I believe represent this spectrum perfectly. The first that I will introduce here is Agathe Daudibon. She is the EuroVelo manager. She joined the EuroVelo team in August 2022, replacing Ed Lancaster. Hello, Ed, if you're listening, wherever you are, we miss you. But it's great to have you, Agathe. And she is responsible for the project for cycling tourism topics and the EuroVelo management team at the ECF. Previously, Agathe managed cycling and cycling tourism projects in France. Our second guest is Philip Insall. Most of you know Philip as well. He was responsible for creating the public health and international liaison programs of the UK-based transport NGO Sustrans, beginning in the mid-1990s. He was a member of the first EuroVelo working group and helped to create powerful international partnerships to develop the network. He sat on the EuroVelo Council from its inception until just last year, 2021. Steering the project and supporting the ECF EuroVelo staff team. I have a few questions for each of them, and we'll get to that straight away as well. Feel free to send in your questions. If we have time, we will answer them, and if not, all will be answered in text form. Again, we have a lot to get to, 25 years worth to be precise, so let's get started. And just right on cue, here are the photos from that gathering exactly 25 years ago today. And from what I understand, some of the folks besides Phil who are in this photo are with us now on this call. So thank you very much for everything you've done and continue to do. This photo is from the first event, as I mentioned, in Spain, 25 years ago today, November 21st, 1997. Everybody was the world was so innocent back then. I will go straight into the first question, and I want to throw this one to Phil, if I might, appropriately with that photo. Phil, what was the idea and thinking in the beginning as the concept of the EuroVelo was coming together?
Hi, Alex, and thank you. I think I need to say that I'm just sitting very close to EuroVelo 1, but it really is pouring with rain, so I suggest you stay where you are and maybe learn something interesting about EuroVelo. You can cycle tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about the very earliest days of EuroVelo. The very first outlines for the network and for the project were based on the example of the first big successful national networks like the Danish, the Dutch national routes. And it was very obvious that the effective promotion of cycling would require not only the national, but also an international level, which would give us more leverage as we built up important relationships with potential partners. So the first working group came mostly from these more advanced and mostly northern European nations. But by the launch in 1997, by the event that's shown in the pictures here, we had widened it to include more representation from the southern and the central and eastern European countries, and which also meant countries where cycling was less developed than perhaps the strongest partners in the initial launch. Just on a digression, the man we call the grandfather of EuroVelo Jens Erik Larsen. Don't know if he's there today. If you're there, Eric, hi, Jens Erik. Yeah, Jens Erik has published an interesting personal memoir of those early days on the EuroVelo website, and or which is now on the EuroVelo website. I think you might find that interesting to read. So EuroVelo at its launch was primarily aimed at developing cyclotourism, but the working groups always kept in mind the broader role of cycling. And we recognized that the development of an effective international network would be a long campaign. So as early as 1998, the first year of operation of the program, the working group was already considering the development of strategies to get cycling and EuroVelo incorporated into the new Trans-European Transport Network program. We were looking a long way into the future, and that's something I'm proud of. And all those years ago, we saw that the scale of EuroVelo would enable us to build partnership with really influential leaders. So I'm not sure if you can see this in the two photos that you have, but in the black and white photo, one of the people sitting there is Robert Coleman, who at the time was the European Transport Director General. Right at the beginning of EuroVelo, already we were bringing in people at that kind of status. Back to you, Alex.
Well, thanks a lot for that, Phil. And, I was going, you guys, both you and I have so many things to say. I hesitate to have any kind of real follow-up questions, although, as a journalist, it's killing me not to. But I just need to ask one thing, because it struck me as I was reading over the things that the three of us had put together over the last few weeks. In 1997, some of what y'all were doing was really quite advanced. I mean, frankly, it's even quite advanced for today. Did it feel that way at the time when you were working together with the original work group here?
Well, I would say, coming from a very backward country where cycling really is not developed at all, the opportunity to work in partnership with Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, there are countries with, and Alex, obviously you being an American, you're probably dangling even further back than we are. So it always felt like we had big brothers who could take us the easiest way to what we were trying to achieve. What I do think was special was that almost from day one, we did have a vision of incorporating high level and very strongly professional partnerships, and the kind of speakers that the ECF team has brought in today just bear that out, I think.
Yeah, I have no problem admitting we being the United States, much further behind all of Europe in this regard. And I feel that every single time I cover a story and cycle in Europe versus how it feels when you cycle in the United States, which is a pity. I shouldn't make too much fun of that. We should be figuring it out. Do you feel that there have been, how do you feel has been the result of that campaign, Phil? I mean, do you feel like it's moved forward the way that it's impossible to exactly look back 25 years ago, but do you feel like it's moved forward the way that you would have hoped, the way that y'all would have hoped as a group?
Yes, others might disagree, I don't know, but for me, that I would say is definitely the case. And there's one other thing, actually. It's very interesting that we've got people here today, numerous people, several of them in the photographs that you put up of the Logroño event. People who've been involved since that very earliest day and are still involved in pushing forward the development of EuroVelo. I think to have those really long, deep roots, ROOTS, we really are a strong partnership. I'm looking just at the grid of names popping up here, people who are taking part today. We really do have a lot of very energetic, very effective, very professional people.
what a tribute to that auspicious day, exactly 25 years ago today. And I got the next one's for you. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for being here, both of you, I should have said. And also thank you to EuroVelo for asking me to be here. I really am quite honored. We've heard from Philip now about some of the history. Can you give us a sense? And here we are with the map from 25 years ago and map today of the EuroVelo network. We've just heard from Phil about, some of the history. Can you give us a sense of the present and the future and the ambition of the vision behind EuroVelo 30, which is, I guess, strategy plan?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. And I just wanted to mention first that I'm very proud to be part of this event in the name of the whole EuroVelo management team that is working daily on the project, but also all the networks, all the partners we are working with, and that's very nice to see all of you connected today. So yes, the network in 1997 and the network today, so EuroVelo today is 17 routes, 90,000 kilometers of cycle network, from which 64% are developed and ready to cycle already. So that's something to realize how much we've gone through already. So it means actually 50,000 kilometers ready to cycle. So the figures are quite impressive when just realizing how much it is. The interesting fact also is that 35,000 kilometers of EuroVelo signs are already available to follow in 24 different countries. So that's already a lot, but our vision for EuroVelo 2030 is for a fully developed and high quality European cycle route network, which is well connected to national, regional, and local cycle route networks and other sustainable modes of transport, such as trains, for example. And that to drive further increases in everyday cycling and cycling tourism, in line with the European Cyclist Federation's vision to improve and increase cycling across the whole Europe. So this ambition is quite high, actually, but so are the expectations of Europeans for a strong and well-connected European cycle network. And I guess today more than ever before, the expectations are really high. So we need to keep it up. And we have 8 years ahead of us to achieve our strategy 2030. And that means developing 36% of the EuroVelo routes, so 31,000 kilometers. So we have a long road, a lot of work to do still. So just to mention that the EuroVelo strategy 2030 is a joint initiative from the ECF, who's managing the network, but also the EuroVelo Council, our advisory body working on the EuroVelo strategy, and the national coordination centers and coordinators responsible for the network at national level. And of course, as mentioned previously, we rely a lot on our supports from institutions, associations, and individuals. So thank you again to everyone.
Well, how lucky we are that the expectations are high, right? I mean, I'm really happy that is the problem that we are starting to have, is that folks want more of this. Instead of having to beat on the wall, convincing folks that this is a good idea, convincing people in different countries that cycling is actually a good idea for tourism. And I got a follow-up question here. We've talked a bit about the idea of accelerating that development. I'm just gonna 3 questions to just kind of maybe frame your answer a little bit. They'll be very, very quick. How is that done? Why do that? And perhaps, as you choose, what are the next steps in that process?
Well, yeah, it's there's a lot of work to do, and we work in very different fields to develop EuroVelo. So I can just mention a few steps probably. And actually, we at this stage, 25 years after the launch of EuroVelo, we know quite the recipe, how it works. What do we need to develop further? The first one will be to support national coordination centers, national stakeholders to improve and maintain the infrastructure, because that's the first step, the first stone, actually. We need the infrastructure to be able to cycle also. And for that, we need funding for cycling, and cycling should be prioritized. And I guess it was mentioned also in the introduction, so that's a good point. The second ingredient, I would say, would be the quality of services for cycling. So that means cycling-friendly services schemes, for example, services adapted to welcome cyclists in accommodations, but also, and that is really important, multimodal connections on EuroVelo routes. So to be able to connect trains, for example, with bikes, especially cross-border connections, which are quite difficult to achieve. Another ingredient is, of course, the communication promotion. So offering attractive communication tools on EuroVelo at transnational level, such as eurovelo.com. So we want to make eurovelo.com a hub for cycling tourism in Europe. And we also need to have connections with strong national portals to give access to all needed information. And we want to promote a strong and consistent EuroVelo brand. So that's also topics we are working on. One example on that perhaps is a recent improvement of GPX tracks on EuroVelo being downloadable from eurovelo.com since July. And that was a big achievement. We've been working hard and all the team has been working a lot on that to enable those GPX tracks to be downloadable. Then we also need, and that has been mentioned already also, to produce more quantitative and qualitative data to be able to demonstrate the positive impacts of EuroVelo in terms of environment, of health, economies at all scales. And that's really essential. And we will hear more about that later on another panel discussion, so I won't say too much about that. And then finally, of course, and that's also necessary, we need to strengthen the organization and financial capacity of EuroVelo within the European Cyclist Federation to continue the work and achieve our ambitious goals. So we have quite a bigger team now than we used to have 25 years ago, of course, but still it's an everyday challenge to maintain our resources and to enable us to lead the activities that need to be implemented for EuroVelo.
One follow-up question, which I negligently didn't ask from the get-go, but I will just say this because I know that it's been a theme so far in this event, and it will be a theme for the rest of the event and into the future, is the need, and I also understand the challenge of the kind of data that's needed to provide. I'll just say from a journalist perspective, that data is fantastically important, not just because of using it for reporting, from a standpoint of being able to drive the point home with editors, publications, and then in that case for funding mechanisms who might want to get involved. It's important to show just how powerful and that group is, let's say, for tourism. You know, folks tend to get on board when they know that that is something that needs to be, because even the numbers that I have to use presently that are, 10 years old are huge numbers, right? I can only imagine what the numbers are like today. I can't wait to find out what that is. The basic question that I should have asked from the beginning is, can you define what developed means?
Well,
and a big question, but so forgive me, but.
No, yes, we include in developed routes 3 different categories that we are following up. Is a certified route, so that's the highest level of quality of EuroVelo routes. The developed sections with EuroVelo signs, that's the second highest quality level. And the third is developed without necessarily EuroVelo signs, but perhaps national signage. That the 3 different categories that we consider as developed sections, and that includes the 64% of the network so far. And we continue also to follow up the less developed sections, so that will be planned in the planning stage sections, or not developed and not planned yet. So that's how we categorize the different sections of EuroVelo.
And very, very, very quickly, what do you find ends up being the kind of point that inspires a country to want to prioritize development? Because there's a lot of countries that are on a lot of routes that have not been developed for quite some time, and we're seeing an impulse to move towards development. Have you noticed some kind of common thread about why it is that countries have decided this is worth the priority?
Well, I guess that depends how decision makers would see the interest of developing the European cycle network and also developing cycling in the country in itself. So it's that's why data is really important, and to show how interesting, how important it is for a country and for a lot of different reasons. And I'm sure Phil will continue on that, but simply about quality of life, developing cycling networks, and starting with the highest priority, the European scale cycle network improves the quality of life of inhabitants. So it's perhaps realizing the power, the impacts of cycling in general for different aspects, quality of life, environment, health, economy, and so on. And then I guess when we get the support of decision makers, of high level stakeholders, then we can start building up and go ahead. And that means at national level, governments, for example, but also regional levels, because we've seen in some countries that the support of regional decision makers helped a lot. And it can be very quickly. For example, I've seen in the chat, Romania was mentioned giving a high priority on cycling, but we have other examples. And for example, Poland, some regions have done an amazing job developing EuroVelo network in the recent years, in 5 or 3 years. So it's still possible, and we want to gather everyone in the same dynamic. And I'm sure it's possible. And we've seen how many people are online today, and we wish to continue the great job. So yeah, getting inspiration probably.
Thanks a ton. Thank you very much, Agathe. Another question for Philip. We've talked a little bit about the EuroVelo as it is. How it is today, if not more important now, the philosophies that started the EuroVelo. Can you explain maybe perhaps how it's just as important now, the priorities that you guys placed on the EuroVelo concept, as it has frankly ever been? I mean, we're really in this vortex of history where this is just as important now as ever.
Just as important, and evidently more important. Much of what I would have given you as an answer, I think we've already heard. In particular, the quality of the EuroVelo team, a very small group of people managing a very large project with a very strong, clear, professional way of working. I think it's so obvious, but not every international project is run so effectively as this. But I always think about, you know, there's nothing new in this. There are kind of 4 policy strands at the national and at the international and even at the global level, where cycling brings a lot to the party. And this is really, you know, what we have to concentrate on, in my estimation. 4 strands. The first, obviously, is the consistent rise in climate change emissions arising from transport, which is a absolutely existential worry for everyone who's got a brain. Secondly, not ranking in order, but a second area of concern is public health, air quality, physical activity. Cycling has such a lot of critically important benefits to bring to an area which is keeping governments awake at night. The third, obviously, is green tourism, cleaning up the act of tourism, making it an important economic sector while at the same time reducing its environmental impact. And then this would have been a big thing 2 or 3 years ago, but now it's by a great distance a bigger thing. We've got a world war going on in the middle of Europe now, and one of the most powerful weapons in that war is the supply of energy forms, and we have to be able to substitute clean transport for petrol and diesel. So these are really hot topics at the European political level and at the global level, and everybody knows that cycling, and specifically EuroVelo, can play a very big part in developing the solutions. So that's why it's more important now than ever.
Isn't it amazing that the solutions always come down to something very simple? You know, it's just the using, but we're not predisposed as a species sometimes to do what is the most obvious. Philip, thank you for that. The last question that I'll ask here is to Agathe, and I know we're running a couple minutes over, but I think that this is important and maybe is to some degree a big point of this panel. Agathe, how does EuroVelo move forward now? How can we bring a bicycle culture to places presently without one? And I guess this is speaking directly to the strategy of 2030.
Yeah, and Phil just mentioned that EuroVelo is very important to us, and we want it to be important for everyone. And that's also the point, I guess. But yes, since the very beginning, EuroVelo has been developed as a backbone for national, regional, and local cycling networks. I've been mentioning that already. And today, more than ever, the success of EuroVelo will rely on national and local efforts to develop and improve cycling infrastructure and services to answer the daily needs for mobility and leisure of all users, as well as tourists' needs. So perhaps it's also something to stress. But yes, of course, national stakeholders play a crucial role in prioritizing the topic and coordinating national dynamics. Just one example, 9 European countries already refer explicitly to EuroVelo on their national strategy for cycling. So that's one achievement. And obviously more countries take EuroVelo into account while developing cycling networks, of course, but we want more and more countries to include EuroVelo in their national strategies. And ECF on its side is responsible of guaranteeing the coherence and the complementarity of national and local offers at European levels. So yeah, from the most advanced countries to the less advanced ones, we try to make all of that coherent, and that's difficult sometimes. Someone in the chat mentioned cycling from Copenhagen, Denmark to Greece, and there you can see all the range of cycling being part of the culture, of the daily culture of the inhabitants or not. So yeah, our dream is to make cycling accessible for all in Europe, and everyone should be able to enjoy cycling, including the most vulnerable users. And it's, yeah, for us, it's the best way to discover Europe in a sustainable way for the environment and also for the community. So yeah, we want cycling to be an option for the ones not daring to think about it yet. And also cycling tourism can be a way to convince future cycling commuters and vice versa. So that can have an impact also on a daily basis. But for that, we need to overcome psychological barrier, I guess, and that's something we need to build a cycling culture at European scale, and that's probably one of our most challenge. So now let's demonstrate that EuroVelo is not only a dream, but even though challenging, cycling tourism on EuroVelo is accessible for all. Yeah, that will be my answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you to you both. And I think that point, before I send it back to Camille very quickly, I just want to say that the fact that so many countries are now specifically mentioning EuroVelo in their national strategy, what a wonderful fact. And also what a great testament to what the original group has created. And 25 years later, which isn't very long, by the way. You know, this is a lot to have happened in 25 years. How wonderful that is. And I just want to reiterate how honored I was to be able to both meet and talk to both of you and to be a part of this. And thank you both for your answers. Just fantastic. Camille, sorry to go over a bit, but I felt like that was pretty important and I needed to hear more of what they were saying than just leaving it at that. So thank you.
Yeah. It is frustrating to think it's only for 2 hours. We could, keep listening to you guys for ages and keep on the conversation. But in person would be nicer for this. So next time. Thanks a lot, Alex, especially given the fact you are 6 hours, behind us in terms of timing. Well, I want to roll up on that session because of what Phil said. Of course, tackle the growing transport emissions should be a focus of whoever lives on planet Earth right now. The public health sector needs more cycling more often and needs EuroVelo, and that's undervalued, should be even more than this. Green tourism, of course, our panelists before underlined that, but there is really a matter for teaming up on better, more sustainable tourism for tomorrow. And of course, the energy capacity to be on our own, each country being more self-sufficient. I mean, the Netherlands understood that in the 70s, hence the national cycling policies from years and decades back. But the energy sufficiency of Europe is also dependent to some part of EuroVelo. Teaming up is also very important, teaming up with the people, the deep-rooted people. We've seen lots of very old partners of EuroVelo still being on board of that beautiful project from Spain or from Germany, from wherever, but also lots of new people, newcomers, and the community is growing. And teaming up also in terms of sectors. Multimodality has been many times mentioned, especially the teaming up with trains, and not only national trains, but transnational trains. And ECF is doing a tremendous, fantastic job on that, but needs to be keeping doing the great job. And also underline the importance of data and how fantastically important it is, as Alex just said earlier on. And for that demonstration, I'm happy to welcome to the floor Holger Haubold from ECF for the next session on how can data support the development of EuroVelo. Holger, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Camille, for the kind introduction. So in the next, let's say 3/4 of an hour, we will speak a bit more about cycle tourism data, because as we've already found out, this is a very central topic. And we will showcase here which data is available at the European level first, and then 4 excellent examples from the national and from the regional level with our distinguished panelists. But also which data we would need in the future. I think that's also kind of the goal of this session, to show which data we would need in the future. So I will start by giving you a very brief introduction to the EuroVelo Data Hub, which you can now find featured prominently on the landing page of the EuroVelo website. And where we present the data that is available on the state of the network at the moment. So what are the goals of the EuroVelo Data Hub? So we want to present aggregated data on the development of the network and its use over time. We want to promote investments in the network, showing that cycle tourism is a dynamic sector, presenting business opportunities and potential for creating employment all over Europe. And also to inspire other actors in the cycle tourism sector to develop monitoring and evaluation activities by making guidance available. For example, the excellent EuroVelo guidance from France that will be presented by a panelist later. Which data types and sources do we use? First of all, and maybe most central, is network usage. So here we have an excellent collaboration with Echo Counter, a sample of 170 counters along 10 EuroVelo routes. And we're very happy to have Enrico Dobano here with us today, who will present the latest figures from this collaboration. So yeah, little suspense here. It's very exciting. Then the route development. So this is data provided by national EuroVelo coordination centers and coordinators, or the national contact points on the status of the different routes. And finally, digital statistics. So statistics, for example, from Google Analytics and EuroVelo social media channels about the, let's say, digital interest in EuroVelo. So very briefly on route development, latest figures there. I think, yeah, they were mentioned before, but it's still good to repeat. I think it's a very nice result also on this occasion of the 25th anniversary of EuroVelo, to say that around 64% of the network are already ready to cycle, meaning certified, developed with science, or developed, as I got explained earlier. So yeah, almost 2/3. So, and also very interesting to see is that between 2021 and 2022, more than 2,500 kilometers of routes were developed. So just within 1 year, this number has grown already by 2,500 kilometers. But that also means that around 31,000 kilometers of routes remain to be developed by 2030. And if we continue at the current pace, we will make progress towards this goal, but we will not reach this goal. And this means that we need further EU funding, but also national, regional, and local initiatives to further develop the EuroVelo routes and to achieve this aim. To finish on the digital statistics, so a very central number, more than 1.6 million web visitors. This number for this year is not comparable to the years before because we introduced cookie consent functions on the EuroVelo website. But we do have some numbers that are comparable between years and that show a very strong and dynamic growth in the interest in the EuroVelo digital channels. So for example, more than 20% growth in the clicks through Google, and then also very sustained growth on social media. So you can see Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, very dynamic growth rates from 9 to 27%. Maybe one other interesting statistic is the average session time on the EuroVelo website, which is more than 3 minutes. And which shows that people are staying quite long on the website. And it's also an indicator maybe for the information value that people get from the website. And then also, yeah, more than half of the visitors are mobile visitors. So of course, we need to adapt a little bit to that as well, to go with the time and to adapt the website to that. I got already mentioned also the downloads of GPX tracks, which have been downloaded more than 32,000 times already since the introduction of this feature in July this year. So yeah, I think that's very successful. And yeah, it's complementary to the information that our national partners provide for their sections of the network. And I think it's also useful for cross-border trips. So yeah, those are some statistics that you can find on the EuroVelo Data Hub. So be sure to have a look there. And now I will hand over to Enrico for the usage statistics, which you're all waiting for.
Enrico, we can't hear you.
Okay, yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, now I will share the screen. Yeah. Yes, I will tell you about the cycling explosion of 2022 of bike-tourism. As Alessandra said in the first introduction, that from Arrival's point of view, trying to reach 2019, see if we are able from bike-tourism reach that level in 2022. Same. Did we reach the same level of 2019 or not? This would be the magic question we try to address. Before starting, just a quick word for the ones who doesn't know EcoCounter or what we are doing. We are a manufacturer and of bike counters, so we install physical counters on the bike facilities, and we are doing that all over the world. We have counters installed in more than 56 countries. More than 4,000 customers through, a little bit all over the world. Yeah, I think Olga, you mentioned the collaboration that we did since the past 3 years. Actually, we have a huge number of counters installed in the EuroVelo network, more than 600. And to simplify the project, we with the ECF, we have a sample of 170 spread on 10 Euro routes that we are analyzing, trying to give the touristic trends to European level, and also benchmarking the EuroVelo between them. So which are the magic number? Wow, which is the growth of the weekday bike counts versus 2019? Plus 10%. I think it's a good way to celebrate the 25th anniversary of EuroVelo network. 2-digit growth versus 2018. So yes, we have already get back to the same figures than 2019 and even more 10%. And now we observe that this increase is both due to a weekend bike counts plus 14%, but also the weekday bike counts. So we have a growth of a 2-digit of 11% if we combine both together. So great result from EuroVelo network. And I think also we did as I told you before, we did a benchmark between EuroVelo road. And the ones with the biggest growth is the EuroVelo 17 with plus 34%, amazing. In the second position, we have the Mediterranean routes. There where Hanke you are seated on. I think that you can see thousands of bike passing out of your window because you have a plus 18% growth for the Mediterranean route. And the third place, we have the Via Romea Francigena from London to Bari in Puglia, where we have a plus 15% growth. So really enormous and big growth always compared with 2019 for sure. Overall, we saw that we have at the 2/3 of the EuroVelo route a 2-digit growth from 2022 versus 2019. And yeah, all the EuroVelo network is growing from 2019. Also, if we see the changes on the weekdays and weekends, we see that the growth comes from both, from commuting, but also for leisure. This is quite important to observe really the full success that has the EuroVelo route. Also, we asked some customers to have some insight about why we had we've been in some parts so successful. This is from La Loire en Vélo. It's near Nantes. Audrey de Coster, who is managing that part, say the consistent increase in cyclists at this site is due to a significant increase in cycle tourism. So we really see that if it's well managed, the bike project it can show amazing figures, plus 16% versus 2018 in that part of the sector of EuroVelo 6. And also in EuroVelo 7, the Sun route, the long distance cycle route Berlin-Copenhagen has had an influence on cycling numbers, say plus 11% versus 2018. And so we can conclude this short presentation saying that the long-term trends are fundamental to show the success of long-term efforts promoting and developing touristic bike routes. If we saw the success in 25 years of EuroVelo route, yeah, we can really see the long-term is very important to long-term trends are very important to observe them. So we would like to have a happy anniversary to the ECF and the EuroVelo network for all the eco-counter team, and we hope to grow more even in the more 25 years. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Enrico. Thanks for the nice wishes, and especially also for the excellent data and analysis that you provide us with, because this really allows us to have an almost real-time pulse on the development of the usage of the network, and I think that's really a very valuable resource. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our 4 panelists who will give us some examples on data collection and impact analysis at the national and the regional level. Feel free to write your questions in the Q&A module. We will see how much time we have then to go into the questions after. So shortly about our panelists. The first one will be Stéphanie Mangin. She's responsible for data collection, monitoring, and evaluation at Vélo et Territoire, the French National EuroVelo Coordination Center. Then we will have Frank Hoffmann from ADFC, the German bicycle club, who has been working there for a long time, or has been active there in different positions for a long time, focusing especially on cycle tourism, and was also a member of the EuroVelo Council. We will have with us Miklos Berdenci, who's program manager at the Center for Development of Active and Ecotourism, which is the Hungarian EuroVelo Coordination Center. And we will have with us Silvia Martí, who is responsible for communication at the Greenway Consortium of Girona, one of the leading regional organizations in Spain for cycling and walking tourism. So yeah, we'll start with Stéphanie. The floor is yours.
Sorry, I couldn't activate my phones. Hello, everybody. Thanks for giving me the chance to share the French experience on monitoring. The evaluation on cycle tourism in France is a process built for a long time. It takes 16 years, and it started in 2006 with a European project on the EuroVelo 6. One of the objectives of this project was to build a method that could give both qualitative and quantitative indicators, such as the profile of cyclists and their behavior on the route, but also that would be able to give the key impact figures, such as the number of cyclists using the route or their economic impact. This method has been implemented more than 10 times between 2006 and 2017. And in the meantime, because this kind of studies were very hard to be on the route, Vélo et Territoire decided in 2013 to build a platform which permits to collect bike traffic data from automatic counters shared by the local authorities. And if this platform was first oriented on long-distance cycle routes and collect only data from a little more than 100 counters, today this platform is oriented on all cycling practice and aggregate data from more than 1,400 sites. Thanks to a second project, European project on the EuroVelo 1, we achieved to write in details the methodology used in 2006 and began to develop different tools to facilitate its dissemination through the cycle routes leaders and through consultants. This method, you told it before, Olga, is now known as the EuroVelo methods and will be implemented nearly more than 10 times between last year's and the next 2 years. And for your information, the guidance are available in French on our website in Vélo et Territoire, and is available in English on the website of EuroVelo. I just posted in the chat. Thanks to the method, in 2024, we will get a great database with the data collected on 9 EuroVelo routes, 10 national routes, and 11 regional or loops or local loops. Some of them have been surveyed more than one time, maybe 2 or 3 times, and it's a case of the Loire Vélo or Brittany cycling network. This data collection is only possible because of trans-regional cooperation between region and departments, which lead the cycle routes development and their promotion. Without this cooperation, it wouldn't have been possible to leverage the money and the human resource necessary to conduct such surveys. The EuroVelo method is not only a method that has been implemented at the French level during the Atlantic on Bike project. The different partners try to make it replicable through the whole EuroVelo route from Norway to Portugal. And thanks to that, it has been possible to define common standards and design and implement a survey with a core questionnaire, develop tools to help partners, and give some simplification on the calculation process. Thanks to this project, we collected more than 6,000 questionnaires along the cycle route, and we are able now to push the EuroVelo 1 cyclist pictures. And of course, we are also able to produce big key figures that keep technicians and elected representatives motivated on the development and the promotion of the route. As there is more than 10 million cyclists along this route, we generate 198 million of economic impact on the route. These figures are quite impressive. Coming back to France, because the method has been implemented numerous times before, we are able to get some big figures at a national level. Of course, this is not perfect, and we are trying to improve this in the next 2 years and produce a real national database with all the data collected locally. But even without that, a work has been led 2 years ago and gave some interesting insights that I can share you now. In France, cyclists intercept on the long distance cycle routes are mostly French, so it's a short distance travel. And the cyclists coming from abroad before the pandemic, because maybe it has changed now, was mainly German, Belgian, and Dutch cyclists. With an average spending of 68 euros per day, cyclists generate around 4.2 billion euros of economic direct impact for the territories concerned by the route. Because some routes have done this survey several times, we are able to show that it's not only a usage growth as shown by Enrico before, it's also an economic impact growth. Of course, the EuroVelo has multiplied by 2 its economic impact, and the Britain network has been multiplied by 1.5. Of course, having insight on who are the cyclists or how they are satisfied or not very easy to collect, but requires financial investment that is not able to be reproduced each year. But between 2 surveys, we can still follow the trends thanks our counting data shared in the national platform. And thanks to the counting sites, we are able to follow the development of cycling practice in France. Maybe you know that we produce a monthly analysis on a sample of counter and a yearly analysis on a whole data set. And thanks to that, we are able to focus either on urban areas or on long distance cycle routes like here. And on EuroVelo routes in France in 2021, the data shows a growth of 17% compared to 2019, the reference year before the pandemic, and a growth of 26% on the last 5 years. The trend is quite similar in 2022, and we are very happy with that. But as you can see on the map, the trend is quite different from one route to another. And we have some who have a big growth, such as EuroVelo 3 or EuroVelo 8, sorry, when the EuroVelo 5 has only a small minus 1% compared to 2019, which was a great year also. Why we think that it's important to still keep investing in monitoring process. The first thing that appeared to local authorities who embraced such process was that they were able to take a decision knowing better what will be their future and understanding better what cyclists were expected. And it was also a great help to prove that the investment in the route was it, and after it was an help to prioritize and size new investments on the route. That's for the local impact, but as a national association whose leitmotif is to build the cycling France of tomorrow, Vélo et Territoire see another side of all these figures. At a national level, it helps us to make the case of cycling together with other French partners on the subject, of course. There's no doubt that the data collected and disseminated by us and the partners had a great impact on the decision taken a few months ago to renew our national cycling plan and linked into a specific funding of more than 2,050 million euro, with 6 million on the cycling development for tourism purpose. Holger, you asked us before the webinar what we were expecting from the future regarding monitoring. And as someone working each day on data collection subject, my great wish would be to agree on European common language or standard, common methods, in order to not be the one who says that France or Germany is the first cycling destination for tourism purpose, but to be able to prove that what we say is the real thing and be able to compare each other. Of course, because nothing is done without money. Finding specific fundings to achieve this mission would be the topping on the cake, as we said. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. And over to Frank.
Yeah, thank you very much having me on the panel. At first, let me start to say that I'm really proud to be part of this amazing process since 1994. It was, well, an ADFC committee of tourism who started an international experts meeting in Arnhem, and nevertheless, lots of people from Denmark, from Netherlands, from Austria, Belgium, and Switzerland were there. So this was part. We started the process, and Jens Erik was there, and Erik Nyland was there, and some others from Velo Bureau Olten in Switzerland, like Thomas Riddergerber. I really love those people who are just pushing this development ahead. So just to have a look at all these interesting data we have, the ADFC bicycle travel analysis, I think, is something special, because we are not have the power of counting cyclists all over the routes we have in Germany. So we're concentrating on some other processes. Thank you, Holger. ADFC, you know, is the cycling club in Germany. We are the advocacy for cycling since '79. And we always see our mission that bicycle should be at the center of transport transition and climate protection. So this is our big role. But tourism was always the big thing. Next, Holger, please. So we are started really early to see that cycle tourism can be really a push even for all aspects of cycling. So we started very early to develop our own series of products around the cycle tourism. We are publishing the worldwide most successful cycle map since 1989. So it's really a lot of time. We sold them more than 7 or 8 million times by this time. We are managing the Baton Bike, which is a marketing cooperation for 5,800 bicycle-friendly accommodations, which is really a big economic impact from that. And we are talking or speaking for those kind of 500, 800 bicycle-friendly accommodations. Very important. We are operating since more than 15 years a product certification for cycle routes in Germany. Near about 45,000 kilometers in Germany are still certified by ADFC. And we do a lot of media campaigns. Since more than 20 years, we are printing Germany by Bike, Deutschland per Rad entdecken, which is really a yearly big compensation, compensation of routes all over Germany, which allows German and foreign tourists to look at Germany as a destination. And that will be the focus today, the travel analysis. We started in 1998, so we do this yearly. Next, Holger. Just to look at this, at these figures. But what was the idea? We have a lot of discussions in Germany. What is cycle tourism? Not a lot of people are doing that, and so there was really a lack of data concerning that. And we know cycle tourism, and this is still my thinking of this is still underestimated. It's really underestimated in between the lots of tourism sections, let me say. So we started in 1998 a professional marketing research. This was really a time where ADFC was much smaller, and we're talking about money concerning a professional market research. So we started this in 1998, and in 2023 we will have the 23rd edition of that yearly. And very important, it's independent and it's comparable data, so we can have all this year looking back at central data from cycle tourism, and it's a representative research for the whole of Germany. This is very important because we are not looking at experts or some target groups, so we are looking at the whole of German touristic development we can see. We are focusing a lot of aspects of cycle tourism, and for each year we have more than 10,000 respondents, which is a very it's a really high number, and that means we are much more than representative about this. The impact of this bicycle travel analysis for marketing, press, and all the professionals in our branch is very, very important. We've seen for the last years, we did that live on the ITB, so this is the biggest travel fair we have all over the world. We put that on stage there, and we have a lot of people just coming and listening to that. Next, please. Just having a short view on the methodology we are just using there. Well, it's very important for us to be representative and to be deep inside our data, and to have really to achieve a significance. We have 2 panels, and we use an online research on top. So these are 3 different methods we are using. We are put them together for the evaluation at the end. So that means more than 10,000 respondents with weighting up the results. So there's no skewing of results caused of the cycling enthusiasts, because ADFC members are still one of the target groups. But this is not the representative one. This comes from the other 2 panels. So we mix it up, and we come to a very professional and a very good representative result, which is very important for this data. Next, please. Just to look that we are not only counting cyclists at this time, we look very deep on tourism special target groups we have. We can differentiate between touring cyclists, which going point to point, the regional cyclists who stay at one region and do several trips there, and we look at even at the leisure cycling trips, doing one-day trips, if they do it from home, or do we do that on holidays. We can differentiate those data. Next, Holger, please. So we do a lot about what are those people? I was asked still 20 years ago, oh, who's doing that kind of interesting traveling? Who are the cyclists who do that? We need to meet more about this special target group, because this is essential to do the marketing for that. So we do a lot of these data. You can see some examples here, but we have lots of more. At the end of my presentation, I can give you that downloading page where you can get all the data. So this is just an insight. To the next, Holger, please. We have, very important, the number of cycling trips. So we know very well how many people are going on a cycling trip. So we see for 2021, last year, we have 3.9 million. We are coming from 5.4 million. This was before Corona. So we see very well what Corona did to this kind of cycling tourism. Well, especially there's a lot of impact concerning that, very important. Next, please. And of course, we look at the economic impact we have. It was just mentioned from the French side, but we have the same in Germany. So we look at 330 million day trips from home. We're looking at 63 million day trips on holidays with a bicycle. We're looking at 7.6 million short holidays, which means this is mostly a weekend or something like that. And we're looking at our, well, really special target group, about 5.4 million cycling holidays, which last on average normally 5 to 6 days. This causes really 12% of the tourism volume of the whole of Germany, which is really a lot. And at the same time, it's nearly 12 billion turnover which we have from that. And this is really important if we are getting into discussions with government, with tourism marketers, with travel organizers, and some others. Holger, next, please. We have a lot data from the motives from the people. Why are they doing a cycling trip? We know there are different possibilities of motives. This is very important to know something about this. Next, please, Holger. We'll know a lot about how they plan their cycle trips. This is even important concerning at the industry, looking at the marketing, how they do it. There are a lot of important aspects, and it's a mixture. But we know very well that the infrastructure is very important, the traffic safety, the route navigability, cycle-friendly accommodations. There are lots of important aspects which should be known. Next, please. We look very deeply on the customer journey overall. Lots of industry partners ask us, what about the preparations? How do they search for the trip? Yes, we know about this. And we know at the same time, their information about during the cycling trips is very different. So we know the customer journey is very much online in front, but it's very much analog during the cycling trip. So signature is very important on the road trip. Before the trip, the internet research is the main thing we have, but it's a mix up, and it's very important to see that maybe printed cycling maps are still interesting concerning the preparation and during the cycling trip. Very important data about that. Next, please, Holger. We know about the top destinations which German cyclists use. So 78% stay in Germany, but even all over Europe, German cyclists are going on. Austria, Italy, France, the Netherlands, and even Switzerland are the main, but we have much more detailed data about routes and even the regions where they go to. Next, please, Holger. Well, very important for even the German press is our yearly data about which are the number one from our long distance cycleways. What the people are choosing? What is the most important route? And we see there is over the long 25 years we are doing that. We can see a high continuity, but even some newbies who are on the road. So this is very important and a very big thing concerning our marketing and our press relations, which we need from that. Next, Holger. So, and even at the last, we have an outlook. So we're asking the people, what will you do next year? What are your targets? What are your destinations we want to choose? So how they plan a cycle trip and to what destinations is very important. And we will present this from ADFC this March again on the ITB. So this will be an outlook how the season is running and what are the news data about that. So be keen on that. That will be on the ITB in Berlin this year again. So thank you very much for your attention. Please, all the data, there are lots of data. I just can really tackle them a little bit. Just find all the German and English versions for download at www.adfc.de Radreiseanalyse. You will find it in German and in English, no more languages by now, so sorry. But I think there are a lot of more data. I just can really show a few of them here. But I think what we still need is still we need comparable data for the whole of Europe. This will be my last word. We need these to come along and to push much more of cycling tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank. This is really, really exciting data. Amazing presentation as well. We will go to the last two presenters, Miklos and Sylvia. And could I ask them please to keep it brief because you have some very important parts coming after. So Miklos, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. My name is Miklos Berenci, working for the Center for Development of Active and Ecotourism. And next slide, please, Holger. Thank you. So the history of monitoring of cycling tourism in Hungary started in 2008, where the local water management company started to count cyclists on a bridge. But we have monitoring in Budapest since 2010, which includes the touristic data, but also the daily cycling data. From 1995, we have road traffic data where the cyclists were included in the counts, but these data sometimes, especially on the important roads for the cycling touristic network, the low traffic roads, wasn't always exact. In some years they didn't count cyclists, so that was kind of estimation. The program that we started in 2018 was on the touristic routes that in the maintenance of the state road company. So we started a counting program, and we deployed 63 automatic counters, and we do manual counting as well around in 100 spots in the countryside, all of them including high traffic touristic routes. We also have surveys like in Germany. The survey is representative, and we asked cyclists about their motivation, how long is the trip, how much they spend, which is their favorite route, which is their favorite region. So we have very interesting and important data how people cycle in Hungary. But we still have to improve our methodology because it's only for domestic cyclists, and we have to, in the future, we will cover international cyclists as well. Another source of data are the heat maps. For example, Strava, which is also very important for cycling tourism. And we also analyze the web statistics. For example, my agency has a website offering different cycling trips recommendations, GPX files. So we can follow the visitors of our website, which route are they interested in. Next slide, please. On this map, you can see the 63 points that we have automatic counters. In the future, we will extend this network. At the beginning, we had technical issues as well, but we started to change some of the counters. We have a cooperation with EcoCounter as well. Next slide, please. The cycling tourism in general is slowly developed in the last 10-15 years. But during the pandemic, that was a huge increase since people were not allowed to go abroad. So they spent their holidays in the country, and they discovered the best locations. On this graph, you can see the 4 most popular cycling routes around lakes, for example, the Lake Balaton or the Lake Tisza. And you can see a huge increase in the numbers. So cycling tourism is really booming. And that was the situation in 2020. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that there is some drop compared to 2020 or 2021. This is the data which includes the daily traffic and the touristic routes as well. So these are the results of manual counting on weekdays and weekends. But if we take into account that the touristic trips, there is only a small decrease, just a small drop compared to the last 2 years. Okay, next slide, please. And what we use the data for, so we do traffic predictions, and when we plan the network and we plan a route, we can estimate how much capacity we have to provide for the cyclists. Of course, we need the data to gain political commitment, and of course to have sources, funds for the development. Of course, it's important for cost benefit analysis that we do in feasibility studies. for bigger investments. And of course, the justification of these investments later still reuse these data. And it's very, very important for the businesses. If you take into account the, for example, the cyclist friendly services, they must know how many cyclists will they see on a certain section of a route. Next slide, please. So how to improve monitoring on EU level? We would be very happy to have a common methodology for the data collection. So we would be able to exchange and compare data from different countries and different EuroVelo routes as well. We would need a common database, so everyone would be able to do statistics for himself and see the progress of different routes and different countries. And where I see a huge potential is the big data. So we have a lot of data, but we just have to collect them from different resources and analyze them, and we would have much deeper insight what cyclists do, what they want, and we would have more deep insight what they need. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miklos, for these interesting insights. And then we go over to Silvia, who will present the analysis from the Girona region, the Greenways.
Hello, many thanks for the invitation and congratulations. With this presentation, we want to talk about the two principal systems that the consortium have since we begin to work in cycling routes in Girona, to have information about our routes, our cycling routes, and especially our users. We will talk about economic impact data and user profiles. Can I have the control of the presentation? Okay, thank you. Short story. While the consortium begins near 20 years ago, we managed 110 kilometers of greenways from the Pyrenees in the north to the Costa Brava. Now we have more than 200 kilometers of greenways, cycling route connecting with France called Pyrenexus, about 353. As you see, part of Greenways is part of this network, and other cycling routes, more or less, more than 100 kilometers. And we continue growing. Oh, excuse me. Okay, two systems. Our first system, at the beginning, we have 3 counters. This is very useful to know how many persons are in the route, not only cycling, also walking. Now currently we have 7 fixed counters, also in Pyrenexus, and Pyrenexus is part of the EuroVelo 8 and 2 mobile counters. The results of these counters we can consult by web, and monthly we communicate this data to all the municipalities members of the consortium, so all the municipalities in the route. And every 6 months we have this publication on our web. After, I will write you in the chat several places in the web where you can find all these studies, okay? And especially now we are going to talk about a study of economic impact and user profile made 4 years ago. With this analysis, we had 2 different studies. And we know about the several user profiles. We know yet about this, leisure, tourism, daily mobility. We know that greenways are better known by the local public and PD Nexus for the foreign public. Of course, it's normal because it's connecting with France and the connection of EuroVelo. The proximity visitor is local, direct customer, and is cycling a half day or 1 day. And the foreign visitor, only a small percentage come by Greenway. They know more PD Nexus than Greenways, but they know Greenways while they are once at the destination. Okay, while it's important, these conclusions, I am not reading all. We know the strengths of our routes, the weight points, especially comments about the maintenance and the improvement of cycling space. I need to explain that we wanted to have quality data and also quantity data. And that's why we combine the data of the counters with surveys and interviews. These two studies we have planned was with interviews to users in the route, entrepreneurs or businessmen who are working in touring services in the route. And also we have the opinion of the politicians and the technicians working in the several municipalities of the route. So why is important for us to have all of this data? How monitoring help us to organize our work? Of course, if, for example, we know that PD Nexus requires improvement in some places, or we have the value of different points that we are going to see in the next slide, we can plan. The consortium is a local entity, then have the managing of the promotion of all the cycling routes. So with this data, we can plan the work of the different persons who are working in the consortium. We have a technical area and we have a promotion area. And with this data, we can organize the work for next year and including have a plan for 4 years. The principal data we manage. And we like to explain. In this economic study, we saw that greenways and cycling routes are real and economic motor. The direct impact in Girona, and Girona is a small province, it's not a big region, is in this year, 2018, near 3.5 million. And for us, this is very important too. If cycling routes doesn't exist, more than 63 direct jobs doesn't exist. And also several business have not exist. I don't know if I'm on time, but you can see, you will consult all of these presentations, I think.
Yes, so maybe we can consult it online, yeah.
These are the results of walking, cycling, and several aspects. The most positive aspects: signposting, cleaning, conditions of the route, accommodation services, and we know we must work hard in rest areas and information points. Also, we are promoting transfer services. And why is important to have this economic data, 3.5 million? Because, you know, data of how is good for the health and how is good for the environment is lovely. But when we are going to talk with the politicians, with the municipalities, politicians in Girona or also in Catalonia government, we must give them an economic data because we are asking them to help us in the promotion, not only of the infrastructure, including in the change of the mentality and the promoting of the use of the bike in general. So this is our principal competitive conclusion. Cycling and walking routes are really a big economic motor.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. I think that's a great conclusion also for this session. So yeah, I see there's already been some quite dynamic exchange in the Q&A section. So very happy to see it, also the interest in this topic. And I think what we can take away from this session is really that we have these excellent national and regional examples already of evaluating the impact of cyclotourism. And we would really also need to bring this to the European level. First of all, with common standards. So some work has been done there also to develop methodologies, but also more funding, for example, for an update of the study that was done in 2012 that was already mentioned earlier. To also have this economic evaluation at the European level. And with that, I will give back to Camille. I think we're a bit over time already.
Yes, we are running out of time, but we really hope that you'll be patient because we've got a few announcements to make before we render the line. And we're going to start with our section 4 with the big surprise of the invitation to the next EuroVelo and Cycling Tourism Conference 2023. We're going to reveal where that will take place. But before that, we have our last keynote, Mr. Kieran Cuff. I hope I do pronounce that properly, Kieran. I'm not quite sure. You're a member of Parliament of the Transport and Tourism Committee, the TRAN Committee, at Parliament, who does supports EuroVelo very actively and cycling very actively in particular. As your opinion, and can you deliver us a few words, Kieran, on how is the European Parliament supporting cycling and EuroVelo, and how is EuroVelo contributing to more sustainable mobility in Europe, according to the TRAN Committee?
Well, let me try and put that into a few brief minutes of conversation. As you pointed out, yes, I am a member of the European Parliament representing Dublin, Ireland. But more importantly, I sit on the Transport Committee of the Parliament, and I'm well placed to try and push along active travel and specifically walking and cycling. But it is quite challenging because the Transport Committee is quite conservative, and I think I would say that our Transport Commissioner, Adina Valian, is not the most progressive of commissioners, nor are the immediate civil servants who work within the European Commission on these issues. So it can be a bit frustrating. And as an everyday cyclist who's had the privilege of cycling across France and down to Italy and down to Spain a few times in the past, I do feel a sense of frustration that we cannot move more quickly on some of these projects. But look, 25 years, it's a milestone, and I want to say congratulations. I think this work is truly impressive, and it should have received much more official praise, and sadly it hasn't. But I think it is clear that cycling's moment has come in Europe, and I think it can no longer be relegated to the bottom when it comes to our transport system. It needs to be up there at the top of the transport pyramid, along with walking. And cycling can, is, and should be a much more integral core part of our transport system, transporting both people and goods, and not just in urban areas, but beyond, as demonstrated by EuroVelo. So with the upcoming resolution on cycling in the European Parliament. And with the comments we've heard from Franz Timmermans recently, I hope we can get the Commission to capitalise on this moment and implement it at EU level. We need to make cycling a fully fledged transport mode in European transport policy with dedicated policies and funding. A crucial network in all of this is the EuroVelo network, which has proven to be a roaring success and which, despite many hurdles, still has enormous potential. Particularly with the growth of e-bikes, I think its reach can go even further for both travel and tourism purposes. But we must, however, further complete and expand the network and ensure that the policies that govern other transport modes do not hinder the potential of the EuroVelo network. We have to ensure the safety and fluidity of the network, avoiding motorways that can cut off cycle routes or force them to alter their route. Ideally, I would like to see the EuroVelo network given network status within the TEN-T network with its own coordinator and funding, but I'm not sure that there are majorities inside the European Parliament for this, unfortunately. My colleague Jakob Dalund, a Green MEP from Sweden, is pushing for recognition of EuroVelo in the TEN-T network, however. I also think that those who advocate for tourism inside the EU bubble don't realise quite how significant cycling can be for tourism and is across the European Union. It brings in significant revenues. It helps regions move away from other more damaging forms of tourism. But too often the drive is to simply emulate regions that have focused on Ryanair-led short-stay city breaks rather than eco-tourism and cycling tourism. And I think if we can showcase success stories to the EU institutions, we can further accelerate the shift that we need with associated support and funding. And this can further accelerate the needed shift, also in terms of mentality. Cycle tourism has been part of my life for the last 30 years. I've traveled across the United States on a bike, across France, through Italy, through Spain. I know the potential and the beauty of Europe that can be released when you see it over the handlebars of a bicycle. And I only wish I could convince more of my colleagues in the European Parliament and institutions to be more radical on making this shift happen sooner. But look, 25 years, it is a success. It's a real success. But I think the next 25 years can be even more successful in terms of delivery. And I think in the face of climate change, in the face of the need to decarbonize our lifestyles, there's so much that cycling has to offer. And I think it is finally dawning on those who manage EU transport policy that we need to promote cycling and deliver the infrastructure that's needed. So let's hope for a strong and united message in the European Parliament for this cycling revolution and the resolution that comes before the Parliament. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was a very, very inspiring end note. And thank you for your patience and your being so concise as well, Kieran. It was not that obvious. And let's wish for those next 25 years to be very transformative. It's been very inspiring. It's brought a wider community together on the EuroVelo crib, so to speak, but now it has to be really transformative. And do we really have a choice on this? Because cycling is one of the solutions that ticks all the boxes again for many, many public policies. So thank you again for this address and the support of the Tran Committee for ECF and EuroVelo. Now, it is a great pleasure because it's 25 years old for EuroVelo, so happy birthday EuroVelo indeed. And for that occasion, it was very important for us, the EuroVelo Council, the ECF board, and of course the EuroVelo management team to take that occasion to announce the next 2023 EuroVelo and Cycling Tourism Conference host. And of course, the city that will be hosting the conference is on a EuroVelo. What else? And of course, and the city that will host the next conference will be next to EuroVelo 8, more exactly. But it is therefore my great, and it's also in a country which EuroVelo has never been before as a conference. So it's my great pleasure to announce that Izmir is the city in Turkey that will be hosting the EuroVelo conference. Yay! And after a call of application and after a thorough, analysis of the applicants, it's been unanimously, given to Izmir. So I give the floor now to Ceylan Censol. I'm not sure I've pronounced it correctly, but I do my best. I guess you are connected in Izmir, but you'll confirm us this. Ceylan, you are the Product Marketing Director of the Turkish Tourism Board, if that's correct. And I'll leave the floor to you if you can be very precise and punchy in order to invite everybody to Izmir in 2023.
Wow, thank you, Camille. That's so exciting. Yes, this is so exciting and so wonderful. Thank you so much. So we would like to welcome you with a short movie at first. Would you, Camille?
Oh, that was very short.
I guess
I don't know what happened with the... Okay, here we go.
Well, thank you, Camille. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be chosen as the host city for the EuroVelo and Cycling Tourism Conference 2023 on this day, which also marks the 25th anniversary of the European Cycle Route Network. Happy birthday. Izmir is a city that fully embraces life on bicycle with its bike paths, related infrastructure, bike-friendly accommodation, and distinctive cycling events, and impeccable nature. Izmir has been ready for this conference since the first day of 500-kilometer long cycling route joint EuroVelo network. We are excited to welcome professionals from the cycle tourism sectors from all over the world to this conference, which also give participants the opportunity to cycle the EuroVelo 8 Mediterranean Izmir section, which includes 17 ancient cities, 2 of which are on the UNESCO heritage list, ancient Pergamum and Ephesus, authentic local villages, a vibrant and historical city center, golden beaches, olive trees, vineyards, citrus orchards. Since ancient times, Izmir has been known as the Pearl of the Aegean, thanks to its simply stunning sunshine, healthy and fresh sun-kissed cuisine, and thousands of years of culture and history that define the Turk Aegean's character. On behalf of the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, TGA, the Turkey Tourism Promotion and Development Agency, and all our local partners and stakeholders, and the cyclists and bicycle enthusiasts in Izmir, and also the welcoming people of Izmir, we are welcoming you to the city in October 2023 for an unforgettable conference to pedal through history and nature in Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ceylan. So I do invite everybody to save the date of the 11th, 12th and 13th of October 2023 to all go to Izmir to the Tourism and EuroVelo conference on EuroVelo 8. It will be a key date next year, not to miss on. Thank you very much, Jelan. We are so enthusiastic about this. We wish we were there already. So it is my great pleasure to thank everybody for providing this great event. You were very, very many people connected all throughout the event from all over the world, I think it's safe to say. And I also want to reach out many thanks to the EuroVelo management team, who is acting behind the curtain, but doing a tremendous and wonderful work for developing EuroVelo on a day-to-day basis with the NECC and the EuroVelo community. And I want to address special thanks on behalf of everybody to the one who've worked to prepare that event, Marta Oriwell, Jessica Casagrande, and Alexandra Fournier, who have worked very, very much to make that into a success. Of course, there'll be many contents available in the next days on the eurovelo.org website, as well on the ECF website, of course. And we do wish to see you in the flesh very soon, being at Velocity, next May in Leipzig, or in Izmir, of course. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being so patient, and we'll see you all very soon. Happy birthday, EuroVelo.